Welcome to our 49th show of Pittsburgh Sportsline. Hope you enjoy the show. We have a lot of great sports topics. And of course, you know, I go off subject a little bit. We may cover other things here too. And we always start our show off with what's on our minds. And we have Big Mike Butera to lead us in What's on Your Mind.
Couple things, if you don't mind, Machine.
Go ahead.
Number one is inconsiderate people. Inconsiderate people chose to have a fender bender in front of me on my way to the show this evening, causing me to run in as we're getting on air. I didn't have a chance to do makeup. How's my hair?
Good.
Okay, that's what's natural. Ambiguity. Now, these guys to my right have chosen over the past few shows to use big words. And you know, I got to go home, I got to look them up, and then et cetera. Tonight, I'm using a big word, and that big word is ambiguity. And you kids at home that can call in at 412-831-3304, don't use these big words at home because I'm a professional. Ambiguity, ambiguous as it pertains to sports. We're at that time of the year in baseball where in 2 weeks, the whomever that votes on MVP and Cy Young and Rookie of the Year, et cetera, at the end of the season, the awards are all voted on so that spillover into the playoffs just doesn't matter. So MVP, to me, is where it becomes ambiguous. What is the MVP? I know it stands for most valuable player, but most valuable player, and I'm talking baseball, folks, most valuable player to what? If you're most valuable player to the league, then you can be Ernie Banks in 58 and 59, played on the Chicago Cubs and for a last place team and won MVP 2 years running. But to me, the MVP should well be a person that God gets his team into the playoffs. Otherwise, what are you most valuable to? I mean, every team has a most valuable player. The Pirates will have Andrew McCutchen.
Hey, instead of being ambiguous here, you're starting to get Smoking Jim a little upset here because he's on the record as saying who's an MVP for the Pirates. So you hit a sore point. I know you're new to the show, and we appreciate you coming in here, but you're being very ambiguous with your whole dissertation here. It's actually getting frustrating for Smoking Jim. Could you get to the point?
Okay, my point is, in the National League, the MVP is Buster Posey because the Giants are going to the playoffs. They're in whatever, and he's having a very good season, 22 HRs, a 320 BA, and 90-plus RBIs. In the American League, it's a little more ambiguous because Derek Jeter has never won an MVP. This is the year that he can win an MVP. Yanks going to be in the playoffs. Other than Derek Jeter, I would think it's going to be Adrian Beltre for the Texas Rangers or Juice Hamilton of the Texas Rangers. And that concludes what's on my mind. Hey, thank you guys. My man.
Very well spoken, Big Mike. I'm glad you got to that point after 6.5 minutes. I'm glad you took my seat down there, too, because I appreciate and respect that. Well, next to him is our NFL scout. Guy gives us fantasy sports picks, and you name it. Gives us high school scores and insights. Smoking Jim Frazier here.
Hey, thanks, Al Levine, the talking machine. Well, just to update the fans out there that like to put a couple of dollars down every week on the NFL. On this show, I'm 6-0 with Monday night, Wednesday night, Thursday night, and Sunday night picks. I gave you the first week the Ravens over Cincinnati, San Diego over Oakland, of course Denver over the Steelers. Came back with, San Francisco over Detroit. If you throw in the Thursday night game, I gave you Green Bay over the Chicago Bears. And, of course, last night we took it home with the Atlanta Falcons over the Denver Broncos. And if you come to Level 20 restaurant Monday night, I'll give you the Stone Cold Lead Pipe Monday night winner. I expect to go undefeated this year on Monday Night Football. But I just want to ask you guys a question. I think the greatest running back, one of the greatest running backs, in my opinion, in NFL history was Larry Zonka. Does anybody know who was Larry Zonka's blocking fullback at Syracuse?
Oh, boy.
I don't know.
Ernie Davis?
No. Ernie Davis, that's very, very close. About 10 years off on that one. But his blocking fullback at Syracuse was Tom Coughlin.
No
The
way.
coach for the
He's half
New York,
his size.
the coach for the New York Jets. Well, everybody was half of Larry Zonka's size, you know. In high school, Ironhead Hayward's and at Pitt, Ironhead Hayward's brother was 190, and he was his fullback. Ironhead was about 300, and that comes to a surprising thing, you know. Tom Coughlin, am I saying his name right?
Coughlin.
Coughlin. Tom Coughlin.
Yes, there you go.
You know, this is a guy who's been hard-nosed and tough all his life. At Boston College, they hated him. He won at Boston College. He left Boston College and was fired by the Jacksonville Jaguars after 7 years. Took him to the AFC Championship twice, but his players hated him. He was always hated because he was a tough, hard-nosed, practice, no-nonsense guy for the Giants, was always being threatened to be fired. And he went on record as being very disgusted because he was upset with his counterpart, a young Tom Coughlin, the Tampa Bay's coach, because he wouldn't let he instructed his players to play 60 minutes. Hey, listen, Tom, you were a tough guy. Larry Zonka, in my opinion, other than him and Earl Campbell, were the two toughest guys to ever play running back in the National Football League. Larry Zonka is still the only player in NFL history who would be running with the football and every year get 2 or 3 unnecessary roughness penalties. And he was the one running with the football, tough guy. So, hey, Tom, you know, hey, you're the defending world champions. Tampa Bay's an up-and-coming team. Ease up a little bit. You guys sound real soft out there in New York.
Thanks, Smoking Jim. I appreciate your insights, and some of those picks we'll discuss off air. You're very good on your nighttime picks, but I'm not going to disrespect you here or mention anything that I lost one house on a daylight pick. We'll just leave that one alone. And I'm sorry to take away from Chip the Prophet Hainer his time. We'll get into that other discussion later. We have Chip the Prophet Hainer, who picked the New York Giants to win and even win the Super Bowl before anybody knew about it.
And he picked the Steelers to beat the Jets.
And he did do that. So you got to give him some credit. And here's
luck
the
in every
unique
moment.
thing about it. He has a Steelers shirt on. And we're going to talk Pirates later on.
Yes, we
they still
are.
mean something. I don't know
Absolutely.
what he's going to say, but what's on your mind, Chip?
What's on my mind? The first thing I'd like to make a mention of today is a gentleman passed away today, died of cancer, and he was somebody that was instrumental in making the NFL the household word that it is now. Steve Sable, who ran the NFL Films. His father Ed originally started that back in the 50s, and Steve took it to another level and has really popularized football. But unfortunately, he passed away today, and he will be sorely missed because he kind of put football on the map with as far as television is concerned. But while I'm speaking about the NFL, you know, once again, and I'm really getting tired of this subject, is bonus game. And now Jonathan Vilma today, this is just completely ridiculous. In his defamation lawsuit against Roger Goodell, he has now subpoenaed Greg Williams and his assistant defensive coach because they are now questioning the validity of the sworn affidavits that were shown to him Friday that state that Greg Williams said, yes, I ran the Bonus Gate program, and Jonathan Vilma was a willing participant, and as a matter of fact, he put a $10,000 bounty on Brett Favre. Of course, he denies this and says it's all false, and you know, he's got this defamation of character lawsuit against Roger Goodell. You know, if he would have just taken his punishment like everybody else, okay, and shut up and take the year off, come back next year, you could finish your football career and everything would be fine. But I think what you're doing is you're doing more damage to yourself, your reputation, and then the NFL, because when this all pans out that, you know, it comes out that you are guilty of what you're saying that you're not. I mean, what kind of credibility? There's not going to be any, you know, character for anybody to defame. So, you know, my advice is shut up, take your medicine, and let's move on with the football season. But that's what's on my mind.
The one thing on that subject, Chip, because that's a hot point for me, good or bad, I don't know what the deal is. But he also said that Williams signed under duress. You can look that up in your Funk and Wagnalls now, you know, for all the people that listen to Big Mike. but he also had 9 affidavits for him that he did not do that. 9 affidavits. Now, I don't know whether you're playing cards, with a poker deck or something. So if you have 9 affidavits against one NFL affidavit, if you win or lose, that'll be for a later day.
And that's the whole problem with this whole thing. It's like, who do you believe? I mean, come on.
You said credibility. So my thing is, Goodell doesn't have credibility. But who does? The lawyers are the only ones that are controlling all this.
The lawyers will twist this around so that none of the evidence will ever be admitted into court, and this will end up being a big hubbub about nothing. Let's play football. Let's talk.
And
about
I'm not going to ask you for a prediction on that because I still want you to stay undefeated. Please don't give me a decision on what's happening.
I don't even think Goodell can do that. I don't even think Goodell can do that at this point.
I think you're right. Well, I better get down to what's on my mind. No infomercials, no promotions. I just want to talk Pitt football, Tino Sunseri. Everybody wrote him off, including myself. He's player of the week in the Big East.
Yes, he is.
Now, his coach didn't come out this week like a guy that was a used car salesman last year, Graham, I think his name was, and said that was just an average performance. Well, he had less yards, produced 3 touchdowns, had a great game. So kudos to him. My hat goes off to him. It's great to see they got some character here. As Smoking Jim always says, I like quoting them, they have some heart. So if you show me players that constantly get beat up and then all of a sudden they can produce something, even if it's only one game this year, he's player of the week. You got to give him some credit. He's not a pro. He's been under 4 different offensive coordinators. That can confuse anybody, even the pros. We all know that. So give him some credit. I'll wait and see what happens next week. I don't know, is it Gardner Webb or something we're playing? And that's what's on my mind. But what we have to go to is we got to go to Chipper right off the bat on. I'm dragging one leg. My left leg is falling off of the bandwagon until I woke up this morning.
That's right.
They finished the game at like 1:42 in the morning. I didn't even roll over at that time. But they played after that rain delay.
And they have to play right now. All these games actually mean something. Here it is, September the 18th. The Pirates are playing meaningful baseball. This is what the city of Pittsburgh has been looking for the last 20 years. I mean, there's been how many years in the last 20 that the Pirates were no longer a subject of conversation after the end of April. And here it is. We're getting close to the end of September. And we still, for as badly as they've played, they're still not out of it yet. They can get on a little streak, win 4 or 5 games. Who knows what's going to happen here. They've got 16 left. They're playing the Brewers tonight. A.J. Burnett is still trying to get his 16th win. Why not tonight? I think it's a great time to start, and wouldn't it be sweet having the Buccos sweep the Brewers here in Pittsburgh?
Gotta love that guy. Hey, I got this, part of the appeal for me on this program is the fact that I can ask questions and get.
Don't be ambiguous. What's your question?
Okay, Chip. I'm not trying to hammer you, but I'm going to ask you a question. You said that the Pirates are playing meaningful games. All games mean something right now. It's a 162-game season, and I'm not hammering you, but I want to know the games in April. They didn't mean anything. They all went out.
They all do. Yeah, and the games that and that's the thing about a baseball season. You look back over the season, and if you do this, it could really frustrate you as a fan and as a manager of a team. It would frustrate me too. Think about all the games that if I had made a decision differently, if I had maybe hustled a little bit more, the games that we lost that we could have and rightfully should have won. That's one of the things. But yes, every one of the 162 games does matter. But when we were up 16 games over 500, nobody thought that there was a possibility that we could ever get down to the point where we're at now. But all the games that we won when we were hot, May and June and July, thank God we had that cushion because if we fall down past the point of having any interest. I mean, looks like the Pirates are going to break 2 million in paid attendance this year. That's something to tip your hat to.
What's their all-time best?
Their all-time best, I believe, was the first year PNC Park was open, and I believe it may have been 2.1 or 2.2.
That's awesome.
So I mean, they've got a stadium that only holds a capacity 36, 37, 38,000. But that's one of the reasons why I've always liked PNC Park better than I liked Three Rivers Stadium, because Three Rivers Stadium is a football stadium, and you just couldn't. There were bad sight lines there. You couldn't see the field in some places where you sat. And, getting 55,000 people into a baseball stadium, you play in front of a smaller crowd. It's a lot more energy, better sight lines. I mean, it's just
All right,
much
Chip,
better
enough
experience.
of your promo there. When are you going to the game, and how many more season tickets are you selling? Because you're drinking all the nutting Kool-Aid
I'm
here.
telling you, I've got tickets to tomorrow night's game.
Okay.
I'm going to see 2 games in the Reds series, and I'm going to see the last game of the season against the Braves. And wouldn't that be something if that game if that
Where's
game
Sid
came
Brainat?
down to we
Where
win
is
that
Sid
game and we're
Brain?
in? Yeah.
Will they bring him to the ballpark?
Well, yeah, they did. They did that a few weeks ago.
No,
They
I mean
brought him
for
down to
that
the
last
bow tie
game.
bar. Yeah, Barry Bonds still couldn't throw him out.
From shortstop, deep short.
Again, if you like this conversation, you want to join in on it, you can see we're not talking that much more intelligent than you, even though the guy at the end brought the dictionary today. Call 412-831. What's those other
3304.
Thank
And tomorrow night, Pirates are going to be starting a new kid. He's going to start his first game in the majors, and I'm kind of interested to see him pitch. What's his name, McPherson or something like that?
Yeah, I just heard. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm actually going to be excited to see a kid pitch his first game in the bigs, and hopefully he'll. I know the Brewers have always been a thorn in our side, but boy, wouldn't it be sweet if we could go ahead and sweep them this.
Well, look at tonight. That Corey Hart's not playing, and that's a guy that's killed us this year with, I think, 27 home runs and over 77 RBIs
Against us.
Basically.
And the last time we played Milwaukee, and I was at a couple of the games in that series when we played them at home, and for whatever reason, the Pirates made the Brewers pitchers look like Cy Young. I mean, they need to
What do you
just
mean,
work
the strikeouts and lack of run support?
Just bad at bats. Guys swinging at bad pitches out of the strike zone. I mean, just choking when you got runners in scoring position instead of just relaxing. And I mean, hitting is not so complicated. You see the ball, you hit the ball. When you get too much more involved into it.
You know what? You're challenging Gary Ritchie and his job there. That's the batting coach, as we all know now. Thanks to my brother-in-law, Gary. You might have the insight on the job that he doesn't.
Let's not be deluded. That one of the problems that the Pirates have, and the reason why they're at right now where they're at, is because of the lack of offensive support that they've been getting. They get runners on base in scoring position, and nothing happens. How many times have we seen them load the bases with no outs? The next 2 guys on 2 pitches pop up, and we don't produce anything. I mean, there's other problems that the Pirates have. One of the things that they need to shop for seriously over the winter is a catcher, preferably somebody that can throw out anybody at second base. But also the Pirates pitching staff needs to be worked on too, because they got to do a much better job at holding runners on. Because if you sit there and watch the way that they're stealing bases on the Pirates. The runners are 3/4 of the way down the line before the catcher even gets the ball. So I don't care if you were Johnny Bench, you're still not going to be throwing those people out.
Exactly, and that's part of the system here. Whatever system they have, you need a shortstop that can actually hit a little bit. I mean, because that does hurt us at times, just like the catcher. When you're below the Mendoza line for a long period of time, you got over a quarter of the lineup that is close to that. That hurts.
I'll tell you what, this may be a little bit of a bold statement. But I bet you any amount of money that Clint Barmes has saved more games with his glove in the field this year than he could have ever possibly won with his bat. And arguably, I think he may be one of the best defensive shortstops in the National League. I mean, you see the way he plays. He's impressive to watch him game in and game out. I'd keep Clint Barmes as my shortstop. He's got a good glove in the center of the infield.
When does that series start with Milwaukee?
Tonight.
Right now. We'll get the
Tonight,
biggest fan to give us a little text or
Tonight,
something.
tomorrow night, and Thursday afternoon.
And then who we got after?
Then we go to 4 games against the Astros in Houston.
Then the Brew Crew again, right?
I believe so. And then we follow up with Cincinnati and then Atlanta.
And what's your prediction on those teams?
Okay, 8-8, right? Okay, we got 16 games left. I'd like to see them win. I think they can go 9-7.
9-7.
Finish out the season.
That would take them 4 games over 500 or 2.
Well, and you know what? And
I mean, that's what everybody's. That's
Well,
the
you know,
goal.
We have a bet here if you need
no,
to know.
no,
Chip and I have a bet.
That's the measuring stick a lot of
$1.
people are using, because the 82nd win guarantees the first non-losing season in the last 20 years. And
Man,
you
I
know,
lose $1.
to be honest with you, that number is very, very important to me at the beginning of the year. But I think the Pirates are headed in the right direction, and I love the fact that they're not throwing in the towel yet. They went through a lot. The last week, they just absolutely stunk. I mean, they get swept in the,
Everywhere.
They got swept everywhere, but fortunately they pulled out 2 of them in Chicago, and they could have very easily collapsed. I mean, especially after that game on Sunday when they lost 13-9.
Goodness.
A game they should have by all rights won. I mean, how do you score 9 runs in a game and not win? But
well, you gave up 13. That's how you. That's
yeah,
how you,
exactly.
You know what, Big Mike? We are glad you're on the show because there's certain things that we don't have insights like that. So don't you stop.
Insight? You want an insight right now?
Oh,
that's the same lollipop he had last month, Tuesday.
Would you say the fur that was on it from being
to
underneath the
speak
table?
to something that Mike was talking about earlier, he's talking about MVP candidates for this year.
Yeah.
And
What's your choice?
This is in the American League. I think Derek Jeter ought to get the MVP. And I'm going to tell you something. Derek Jeter is on the downside of his career. Okay, last year he hit a big milestone and he got his 3,000th hit.
Yeah.
He's going to have 200 hits this year, and this is for somebody that they were questioning whether or not he still had the stuff. 200 hits.
How old is Jeter? 38 years
200
old.
hits in a season is a pretty significant number. Okay, and as a matter of fact, nobody else in the major leagues has 200 yet.
And Chip, to your point about Clint Barnes, yes. Being a defensive shortstop. Now, I'm a Yankee fan, and I have MLB, so I watch all the Yankee games. I go to Yankee Stadium. I don't know what range means. You get to a ball, you field it, you throw the guy out. Jeter, if they say he lost a step, how would I know that? But I want to tell you what, he's a clean, solid shortstop at his age. Honest to goodness.
And you want to know something about Jeter as well. And this will all probably blow up tomorrow, but he's one of the few athletes that went through the steroid era.
Don't say it.
That was not touched by
Don't
that.
say
that
this.
was not touched by it. Now I
why
know
you
I
say
said that. He's probably going to get struck by a lightning
Oh,
bolt.
they're going to go investigate him.
But I mean,
They don't
he's,
even think of
seriously,
that.
he's played the game the right way, and he's one of those guys that made hundreds of millions of dollars playing baseball. He played that game because he's a kid and he loves playing baseball.
That's just awesome. A guy that plays for the game.
For the love of the game. I mean, when I was a child growing up, I was happiest when I was out on the ball field playing. We'd play until. And my father would have to come down to the ball field and drag us home. We couldn't even see the ball. We got a ball taped up with black electrical tape, and we're still sitting out there throwing it and hitting it at each other.
And Jeter still plays the field.
He's not a DH.
No, and he's
And
playing
New
the most demanding position in the infield. Shortstop
And
usually.
New York nightlife.
Exactly.
That could wear anybody down. Come on, Big Mike. What happens in New York when you go to New York?
It stays,
you're going
it stays
every
in
other-
New York. That's what happens.
It's
okay?
not Vegas. You can tell us.
What goes on in this show stays on this show.
We're going to change it up a little bit. We got to get our NFL man here, Smoking Jim Frazier. We're waiting to hear these insights. You gave us a few teasers there. What did you think, since the Steelers are on our mind, what did you think of the Steelers' performance? They're usually graded. Why don't you give us our grade first, and then you can tell us why, just to give us some perception on what you think.
Great. I graded a B for the Steelers and an F for the Jets. I like I said before, I even though I predicted the Steelers would get beat by
I didn't ask you
Denver.
to say that.
But I was impressed with the way they played in Denver. You got to realize that the amount of injuries that the Steelers have is insurmountable. And they went out there and played with a lot of heart against the New York Jets. Now, however, the Jets' game plan was horrible. You got one of the best quarterbacks in the league, young quarterbacks in the league, that is, that plays well against the Pittsburgh Steelers, Tim Tebow, and he didn't get a chance to get in the game.
Can you explain that? Because I don't know if people realize he gained 22 yards on his first play, and then there was another gain of like 10 or 11 yards? And then what happened to him?
Well, one thing, Rex Ryan came out with an excellent game plan. They didn't have Darrelle Revis. They played press coverage. They jumped on. They got to a good lead. And that's the perfect time to put Tebow in. You want to possess the ball. You want to run the football. But they didn't play him until the second half. And by that time, Sanchez had lost his heart. He got hit by David Timmons, who shows up about as often as Punxsutawney Phil. He blasted
once a year.
He blasted Sanchez. Sanchez is the only Mexican I know that ain't got no heart. He went into a fetal position the rest of the game, and they still don't put Tebow in the football game, which was crazy. But I was very proud of the Pittsburgh Steelers. I grade their performance a B. Like I said, the Jets are F. The Steelers are in good position right now because they go to Oakland next week. If they can get that win and go into the bye week 2-1, that looks pretty good for the home team.
Yeah, I tell you what, the thing that really impressed me, I didn't get to see much of the Denver game, and I listened to most of the game. I was, working and doing a few things. I saw about the last part of the fourth quarter, and my concerns about the Steelers, and saying that they're going to be 8-8 early. I'll tell you what, I was kind of impressed with the level of intensity that they came up with. They're not deer in the headlights like I thought they were going to be. And Ben Roethlisberger has matured to the point where he can run that offense, and the offensive line can block, keep the dogs off of them, and we can establish a running game. Ben's got the savvy in the pocket, man. He's just got a sixth sense about juking when the defenders just come in, looks like they're going to get lined up. It doesn't seem like very often anybody gets real good clean hit on Ben. Ben gets tackled, he gets knocked over, he gets his ankle twisted, but I mean, he never really, the last time he got hit real good was when Richard Seymour popped him in the jaw the last time they played the Raiders. And I just wanted to kind of bring that up because, it's the Steelers and the Raiders, okay? This is a rivalry that goes back a few decades, okay? George Atkinson, and all the other ones, Mel Blount, and I mean, the 70s was the Steelers and the Raiders played some hellacious battles, but I really think that the Steelers can. This Oakland team, I think, is ripe to be picked. I think they're in disarray. They've got Darren McFadden, one of the best running backs in the NFL. They don't seem to know how to use him, and I think Carson Palmer's best days are behind him. At what point are we going to start seeing Terrell Pryor coming off the bench to spell him?
Are you smoking Jim straight, man, here? Or what?
No, I'm just setting. I'm
setting him up.
I'm loading my brother up on softball or two.
Softball. That's a beach ball. Let me interrupt that before we get to my thing on the defense here. Is I saw a little change with our legendary coach. He had guys pressing the receivers, hitting them. It looked like old-time Steeler football there, Smoking Jim. They were all over these receivers. And then Ike Taylor, your man, did one of the things that I know a lot of NFL players do. They keep fouling until they stop calling it. And then all of a sudden he got tough. He had a terrible first half. He had a terrible game the last time, against Denver. And then he come through. There's a guy that showed heart. So that's one of the key guys. Look at your man Santonio. Got shut down after that, basically. He had alligator arms.
One thing Ike Taylor's got that you have to have if you're a quarterback in the NFL is you got to have a short memory. You can't dwell on the plays that you got burned on.
He was getting every play.
I tell you what, man, Alzheimer's ain't such a bad thing. Short-term memory loss. But speaking of the NFL, last night Jim gave they picked the Falcons over the Denver Broncos, and the Falcons handled them pretty well. And Peyton Manning doesn't have a death grip on the league MVP trophy yet. I know everybody has anointed him because he's back. That the Broncos are going to the Super Bowl, and that Peyton Manning is going to be the league MVP and comeback player of the year. Well, not so fast. Peyton Manning didn't look so much like Superman last night, and they actually didn't look like the Peyton Manning of old. So, we're going to see what kind of a quarterback he is this year because, he's had a year off, a year of rest. He's had 4 surgeries on his neck. He's not going to be able to do things that he was able to do when he was a younger man. And, we're going to see what the season's going to do to him.
Well, I know his wife already said that.
What? Well, the other insight, since we'll get away from the wife here on that.
Did I mention my wife yet?
No, not yet. We're going to get into that in a couple minutes. But the other thing is when the weather gets cold in Denver. That's what I've said before. He may be great, maybe come back. All that stem cell infusions and things that he had helped him out. But what does that cold wind up there? What does that mile-high air do to you when these people are hitting you?
That's an excellent point, Alan, because Peyton Manning's a quarterback that played in a dome his whole career.
Bingo.
He didn't have to deal with the weather. That's why I've always thought that Brady is a better quarterback than Manning, because Brady's got to go up there in New England, and he plays in all the kind of weather. That's why, quarterbacks like Roethlisberger and Brady, Eli Manning, these are guys that weather the elements.
Weather the weather.
Yeah, the elements. But, Peyton's going to have to go out there, and it gets cold up in that Mile High City.
Well, we'll see what happens there.
I got it.
Go ahead,
That
Big
was
Mike.
funny. I like that one.
Well, you're welcome back anytime there. You could be my laugh sound, any whatever.
Peyton
Laugh
Manning.
track.
I'm watching the Yankee game. Well, that's a surprise. I'm watching the Yankee game the other day, and there were 4 different Peyton Manning commercials that came on. Not the same one. 4 different. One was, can I say Toyota? One was for
No, not
Papa
really.
John's Pizza.
No,
I
you
can't
can't
say
say
that
that
either.
either. No.
But then there was, I can't believe it. Peyton Manning's back.
Hey, as a marketing tool, Peyton Manning's he's unblemished. There's been no sex scandals. There's been no tweeting pictures of any parts of his body to anybody else. I mean, here's a guy that's actually, really doesn't seem to have any skeletons in his closet. But I know as soon
Let's hope.
as I say something like that,
Chip,
they're gonna,
you put it on
they're
a
gonna get
couple
him
guys
up,
already.
pictures of him
Gee,
cross-dressing or something like that.
You're taking down these legends now.
I'm telling one at a
Peter
time.
Payne. Wow.
No.
And you're a prophet here. Easy now. What kind of insights do you have? Do you know the Pirates score right now? Crush it.
I'm waiting.
Good stuff. Babe Ruth.
I didn't hear you down there.
Babe Ruth.
Where's he at?
Oh, hey, you mentioned Tebow. I got to get my Babe Ruth in.
Right.
Okay. The contest is still on, correct?
Yeah, how's that working out there?
412-831-3304.
We've also got to touch on the fact that as we sit right now, there is no NHL hockey season this year, and and that got me to thinking today. You got some of these players. You got Evgeny Malkin that's signed with the team in the Russian KHL, and he's going to go over there and play. And then you got players like Zach Parise, who signed a $90 or $100 million contract. You got Sid Crosby and a number of other players that they're threatening to possibly go to either the Russian leagues or over to Europe to play. And you thinking about that for a minute. I know these young kids want to play hockey, but whenever hockey comes back, and it eventually will be back, Sid Crosby's got a $100 million contract. Now, with the last year and a half, 2 years he spent with his brain scrambled, would he want to risk that $100 million contract on just a couple of million to go skate around a rink in, in Eastern Europe? That, what kind of medical facilities do they have? Do you remember last year that one Russian hockey team? Everybody on the team died in a plane wreck because they fly on secondhand planes and stuff like that. So they don't get the first-class treatment and the 5-star hotels they're used to getting here. I would question why you would want to risk your career on short-term needs. I mean, it's not like he needs the money.
Great insights there, Chip.
Oh, I got a question. I got a question on that. That's pretty cool. These players, Malkin and Crosby, they have contracts with the Pittsburgh Penguins.
Yes.
So there's a lockout. Does that negate that contract that allows them to go sign a contract with another team anywhere else?
As long as they're not playing in the NHL. I mean, like as soon as the NHL institutes their season, the contract that he has with there's some kind of legal wrangling involved there that they're allowed to do that. I don't know how, but I mean, if you were under contract to somebody, you couldn't play.
Ago,
but I mean, but then you sign a contract and then you lock the players out. So I mean, so how does that all work? It's confusing.
You know
to
what's
me.
going to happen when the strike is eventually settled? The contract that these guys sign with the KHL or whatever team in Europe, whatever, that contract will suddenly become null and void. They'll return to the NHL. What's a contract anymore?
A contract
well,
that
you're
actually
get
has
us
no.
started
Oh, I'm
because we
sorry.
talk about college football coaches and these other coaches. Like, look at the college football ranks. You had a used car salesman come here, sold us a great new Cadillac for the pit. I don't know, what was that, high octane offense?
Yeah.
We never saw it. So, I mean, that's what you had happening. There isn't loyalty with the contracts there. And that's just how college football is, and it seems to permeate our whole society here. And they do
Big word.
they do have agreements that the NHL and then European countries did agree that they have players can play there like that, even though they're in the NHL. Because for years you couldn't do that. So they did work some type of agreement on that.
Well, and you know, and the NHL is just going to hurt itself, you know, because right now the league has, you know, has never had more popularity, more exposure. Gate receipts are up, you know, revenue is up for all these teams, and you know, now you're going to lock out the players, okay? So we're not going to have a season. Now, you know, I don't really care about the players because these guys are getting paid millions of dollars, tens of millions, hundreds of millions. You know, these guys make more money in a week than, you know, I make in a lifetime. You know, and the owners, they make their billions because, you got to be rich to do that. But what about the people that, you know, that make their living off of a Penguins season?
Well, that's a good
okay,
point.
you've got the restaurants around the arena. You've got the vendors out there that are talking T-shirts or beer or popcorn or nachos or whatever it is you have. You know, the people that run the NHL, and then this is the owners and the players as well, they need to think about, you know, what kind of impact they have on the cities that they go. Oh, well, we'll just have a shortened season. But, you know, look at the revenues today. Look at the amount of taxes that the city of Pittsburgh gets for all these games that are played.
Boy,
and those games are not, you know, so, you know, I think they're killing the goose that's laying the golden egg. And I think, you know, it's going to be really, because people are really getting fed up with these labor disputes. You know, I mean, you know, they really are. They're just getting sick of it. And I don't want to get into the, you know, I don't want to get into it with Alan over
No, we might. I'm getting fired up, but here I wanted to just butt in a little bit here. This shows how callous that the owners are. They lock the players out. This contract didn't just expire without anybody knowing about it. This was well publicized. It was written before. It was negotiated. It was a compromise. Everybody knew what was going on. This is called posturing. We're the amateurs sitting here watching it. We're the ones that suffer. What are the stadiums and arenas built with? Public funds. Okay, so we're getting hit twice. A lot of people didn't even agree to that. And now you're getting hit again, that people that work and earn money around those places that put their businesses up, they could go out of business after 3 months if you don't make any income during the hockey season.
And I know this would never happen, but you know what? If people want to send a message to these people that they would listen to loud and clear, stop buying the jerseys, stop going to the games, you know, stop watching it on TV. When the bottom falls out and the owners really start taking serious losses, but you know, with all the money, all the revenue that they make, you know, people are suckers. They're going to keep coming back because, you know, that pretty blonde's going to whisper in their ear that you're everything that I've ever dreamt of, you know, and they're going to believe it, you know.
Good point, Chip. You're on fire tonight. Great insights.
The biggest supposed hit to Major League Sports was the baseball strike back in what?
94.
How much did attendance fall off from 94 to the 2, 3, 4 years after it? Potential, I don't remember, but
it was significant, and it really what turned that around was the home run,
juiced baseballs, and the players.
The home run derby between Sosa and McGuire in '98 when he broke the original record. That's what put fannies back in the seats in Major League Baseball, and I think that's why they kind of turned a blind eye to the steroids, because you know what, home runs put fannies in the seats.
Well,
I
plus
mean,
there were rumors they juiced the baseballs up. Guys were coming
wasn't
up
the baseballs.
Well, wait, there were minor leaguers that come up and hit 50 home runs. I forget the guys, but the Yankees brought up guys. One season they hit 50 home runs. How does that happen?
That was the Baltimore guy, Brady Anderson.
Oh,
but
okay.
people still go to the games.
I knew the Yankees are above reproach on that.
It took a number of years, but you know, baseball's also been the national pastime for over 125, 130 years. You know, that's ingrained in everybody. So hockey, you know, is started out as a Canadian sport and a northeastern. It was kind of a regional thing, and getting it exposed to the rest of the country and people to get interested in it has been a monumental effort, because you know the NHL never did itself any good. They had a major network television contract back in the early to mid 80s with ESPN, and they were getting a lot of exposure, and then they decided to go with that TSN network out of Canada, which, you know, none of the cable systems carried. So basically the exposure that they were getting, and it's taken them years and years and years to get people back in. And you know, I just think giving up a season, or you know, taking a hard line, you know what? There's enough money for all of you guys to be satisfied. I mean, they can sit down. They can sit down and work this out tomorrow. You know, but they're not even going to sit down and talk. because it's an ego thing.
If you think that a professional athlete, especially the premier ones, have grown up in the real world, you're wrong.
No,
These
you're
guys are
absolutely right.
pampered from day one. Not that it's right or wrong, and not that I wouldn't like to be that guy, but they don't know us. They don't know us.
They don't care. And
That's what it seems like. A lot of them.
And I think basically the fans should treat them the same way and see how it affects them. When you affect the cash flow, you'll get people's attention.
Hey, Chip, I got an update from my biggest fan and the second biggest fan. Nothing, bottom of the first.
All right.
Okay? Wow.
So Jay Burnett got out of the
keeping
first
hope
inning.
alive, smoking Jim in a baseball game.
Mm-hmm.
So
Can I send out a shout out to a couple people?
yeah,
Absolutely.
now's the time. Don't hold back anymore.
Now, Chartiers Houston, that is considered to the south, right?
Yes, it is.
Southwestern
Yes, it
Pennsylvania.
is.
So I want to send out a shout out to a friend of mine. I haven't seen him in a while. Also, the greatest running back in Pittsburgh Steelers history, Barry Foster. His son scored 2 touchdowns in a victory with Chartiers Houston. And don't forget, Chartiers Houston almost beat Clareton in the first game of the season, lost 22-20. So that should be maybe a Heinz Field championship matchup. They also have a great running back whose father happens to be the athletic director of Chartiers Houston, Garrett Volcano, also a very good wrestler.
They're known for that, the Volcanoes. I know them from the horse racing days out there.
Oh, really?
Very big in the horse racing.
Wow.
We'll talk about that off air from back in the 80s there.
Okay. I didn't know that.
You can ask them sometime.
Okay, I gotta ask athletic director Frank Volcano sometime about some horses, and because Chartiers Houston definitely got some horses
That's
in the
why I brought
backfield
it up.
this
There
week,
we go.
this year. Also, Upper St. Clair, that's out in this area. Nobody's talking about them. They're kind of flying under the radar because everybody's talking about Gateway and North Allegheny. But don't count Upper St. Clair out. They look very good. They pounded Woodland Hills in the opening game of the season, spotted a good Woodland Hills team, 14 points, and then just murdered them in the second half. And for all the people that don't think that Pitt has somebody, I tell you what, like Al Levine promoted that Pitt used to promote the high octane. Now it's time to promote the greatest running back in Western Pennsylvania history, Russell Shell. You're talking about a guy, now think about this. He rushed for 9,000 yards. Up until 1981, there's never been, and that includes Tony Dorsett, there's never been a running back in Western Pennsylvania history to run for 4,000 yards. He ran for over 9,000 yards all the way back to his 9th grade year. He put up 38 consecutive 100-yard games or better. 38, which broke Billy Sims' record, who's one of the all-time greats for Oklahoma.
Let me interrupt you for a minute, Jim. How many games did he play in high school? You said he had 38 consecutive.
Right.
38. I mean, what did he do? Play 39?
That's about it. I mean, I think
in the playoffs he got stomped.
I think the second game, his first game in high school, he went over 100 yards because his first 3 carries were touchdowns.
Wow.
And then I think the second game probably broke some rules, some team rules that didn't get the ball. But from his third grade game on in high school, he's never been under 100 yards. And for Pitt to get a guy like this, Alabama wanted him real bad, but he didn't want to leave his kids, and so he stayed local. But
that's always amazed me that that he was such a highly rated recruit, and I was like scratching my head with all the disenchantment and everything going on at Pitt. I mean, the revolving door with the coaches and everything. I'm surprised that he did decide to stay here, and I'm glad he did. I mean, I'm really going to look forward to watching him play.
And the funny thing,
give me something to cheer for when I watch him.
The funny thing, Chip, is the guy, his skill set does not look good in practice because they were really disappointed on him. They thought he didn't learn the offense. They wasn't really impressed because he's fast, but there's faster guys. He's big, but there's bigger guys.
Put a ball in his hand and try to catch him.
You put the ball in his hand, and you watch the way he runs. He puts you in the mind of Trent Richardson. He runs through tacklers. He has balance. He has that with his it on the football field.
Yeah.
And they found that out. And in the second half at Virginia Tech, keying on him, he ran for almost 160 yards, and he's just going to get gooder and gooder.
Smokey, earlier you were talking about Coughlin and the fact that he's a hard-nosed guy, and something about, if I recall correctly, something about his team maybe resented that he's a hard-nosed guy, and they don't play 60 minutes. I understand what you're saying, but I don't understand how a team cannot play 60 minutes or 9 innings or 45 minutes and back. I don't. What do you do? How does a team not play the game?
Well, I never said his teams didn't play 60 minutes. I'm sorry if I said that.
Well, no, you did.
His teams revolted against him. They hated him. They didn't want him as a coach. They talked about him, and who wants to play for a guy that puts their foot on your neck? That's how he is. He's old school. He's
one of his rules was if you weren't 5 minutes early for a meeting,
you were late.
That's it. Even though you were on time for a meeting, if you weren't 5 minutes early, you were late. People,
I see nothing wrong with that.
But these prima donnas,
those are good values.
They're not used to somebody taking them to task for something like that. I'm going to get there when I get damn good and ready.
And Jacksonville hasn't been any good since they ran him out. This is a guy that took an expansion team to 2 AFC playoff games. But these guys don't like nobody to tell them
his personality. It's a little bit abrasive.
Well, again, Coughlin learned his coaching. He and Belichick were both on the same staff with Parcells when he won his first 2 Super Bowls.
Yeah.
So he learned from a badass.
If he blocked for
you guys got it. I got to give you my Parcells story since you brought him up. One of the all-time greatest coaches of all time. The first black football player in Florida State history is a local guy. He's a 4-time Super Bowl champion, J.T. Thomas. J.T. Thomas was the first black in 1970 to ever play for Florida State. The defensive coordinator for Florida State at that time was Bill Parcells. So now you got J.T. Thomas. He's out there with a big afro. Remember those combs with the black fist? The pick. J.T. used to wear that in his hair. So it's the day before the game, the first game. You got all the reporters standing around interviewing J.T. Thomas. He's talking this, that, and other. Bill Parcells is on the other side of the field. Bill Parcells started yelling, Thomas! Thomas! He's with all the other players. Thomas! J.T. Thomas turns around. He says, hey, why don't you call your mama on the phone and have her send all your high school clippings because you ain't showed me blankety blank yet. J.T. Thomas says he got so mad, he went to his room, didn't say nothing to nobody, came out, and he actually blocked the field goal to preserve the victory. But later on, although he still hates Bill Parcells to this day, he says, because Bill Parcells is a psychiatrist.
Right.
Bill Parcells was trying to get him to focus on the game, quit, all that other stuff, all that,
They call that a fluvia. If you get an A word, that's a lot of a fluvia out there. You can use that one.
But Bill Parcells has been a genius for that for a long time, even with a guy like Curtis Martin. Curtis Martin had Bill Parcells do his induction in the Hall of Fame.
He followed him from New England to the Jets. Yes, he did. He followed.
It was a great entrance.
And if you remember, he was a China doll, Curtis Martin, in college. Mm-hmm. Always got hurt. He didn't get hurt in pros because Bill Parcells told him one time. He says, you know what? One time Curtis Martin, first time he got hurt, he says, you know what, Martin? He says, you know what? If you're hurt, you don't have to play. He says, but always remember, when you come out of that huddle, you never know who might go in that huddle. So Curtis Martin suited it up, sucked it up, and ended up playing.
That's the Wally Pitt story.
I'm going to give
that's it.
Another J.T. Thomas first.
Okay.
He was
Ribs?
Wait a second. He was one of our media sports huggers at the
Really?
Huggathon.
Did he play for Steelers? Didn't he?
Four-time starter,
Well,
four-time Super Bowl.
How was he associated with Bill Parcells?
At Florida State. Parcells was the defensive coordinator at Florida State. JT was the first black. Before Deion Sanders, before Bobby Bowden, JT Thomas was the first black.
You've got to listen to everything he says, not just half of it.
I talk Ebonics a lot.
Was that before Deion started wearing fairy wings?
Payton's wearing them now. They're both wearing
That's
it.
it. That's
But
the-
anyhow,
that's
I'll
the third
translate it
commercial.
for you, Big Mike. He played for the Steelers, 4 Super Bowl rings.
let's see.
I don't know how you missed it because a lot of old school guys know that stuff.
I was when he was talking about J.T. Thomas and Bill Parcells, I was thinking about what he said about the thing in the hair. And
Pick.
the pick. Yeah. What would you call it? A pick,
Yeah.
right? But
He had the blowout, too. He blew that out.
right? Speaking
You
of
could
hair,
get that at Ralph's Discount back then.
what I
Blowout. I'm telling
I'm
you.
talking here. When I lost
ahead, try to
when I lost him when he's talking about the thing,
Yeah, the pick.
yeah, what was going through my mind was Frenchie Fuqua's shoes.
Yeah, with the fish in it. Yeah.
How did the pick make you think of fish?
You don't know me, do you?
No. You know what? Call in.
others-
I
some
need some
others
help.
got it.
412
And because JT was the only black in Florida State, there wasn't no girls to cornrow his hair, so he had to wear it. He had to blow it
He
out.
had the
every day.
blowout and he had the pick. I'm telling you. We sold a lot of stuff like that
It wasn't
downtown.
like Snoop Dogg.
Yeah.
It wasn't like
I
Snoop
think
Dogg.
his roommate was Don Imus.
How do you get respect
Oh.
if you haven't cut your process yet?
All the opinions here of the guest hosts only of their own volition. Big Mike, what's on your mind now since we brought you back here?
Picks in the hair and fish in his shoes. You know what I mean? What's on my mind since you brought me back here?
Yeah.
Oh,
I
okay.
mean, right now, since you were gone for a minute or two.
Wendell.
Sorry, Big Mike.
Okay,
You have a
well-
clipboard there with
Yeah,
all
yeah,
kind of
yeah,
notes. You weren't taking any notes on Smoking Jim. You don't even have his pick of the week. It's-
I love this guy. I say it on TV. I love this guy.
Thank you,
And
sir.
you guys too. I mean, you know,
we feel a little
it
slighted
flows
down
up
this
or downhill depending on the level of the table.
We
All
love
right.
you people.
Babe Ruth.
It's a lot lighter down here. Mike, what's with that clipboard? Do you have any facts that you need to throw out our
Actually,
way? Or
as I
is
mentioned,
it blank? Are those pages
Oh,
blank?
here you go. Here you go. This is a cool
Come on, I know you
This
got
is-
a tidbit for
This
us.
is a cool one. Okay. How much time we have? Because this is going to be
Let me
6 minutes.
count down here.
Okay.
7 minutes.
Got it. I can fill
You
it
have
all. I
two
can,
right
I can
now.
fill it entirely.
2 right now.
I'm a Seinfeld fan. Anybody else a Seinfeld fan? Good enough. So you remember, and you too. Good man. You remember
That's
the
Joe, our
episode? Yeah,
cameraman.
Joe, the guy. How you doing, Joe? You remember the episode when
Get a close-up of his hat.
when the episode when
Jerry
Jerry and
thinks
George
he's
were
divorced.
rumored to be, gay. Not that there's anything wrong with it.
William Gay? who
No,
left
they
our
were
team?
like partners, life
okay.
partners.
Okay.
Okay. Now here's what I'm
These
going
are
with this.
definitely his own opinions, folks. They
Can I-
don't represent the station.
Oh, there's nothing wrong with it. Okay.
Okay. Just
And
clarifying.
the prognosticator can help me out, or and the predictor and prognosticator and I are going to get together on this one because my prediction is within 2 years after Josh Hamilton retires from baseball or from the Texas Rangers, he's going down the tubes. Now, why is that? He's got an accountability partner. You guys know about
Yes,
that,
I
don't
do.
you? Now, his father-in-law tried to do the job and couldn't do it, which means his wife can't do the job, which means to me that the Texas Rangers have assigned a guy called an accountability partner that babysits this guy basically. And I'm not ragging on the guy because I really don't care about the guy. But I'm just telling you that I'm predicting, since we're down at the prediction end of this table here, that within 2 years after he retires, the Texas Rangers no longer need his services nor any other ball team. They're not going to provide him with a guy to hold his hand, and there's trouble looming for that guy. Now, why am I hitting on this guy?
Yes.
I'll tell you why. Because I don't like this guy, and I'll tell you why I don't like this guy. When he blossomed after being out of baseball for X amount of years because of his addictions, and I'm not going into addictions, but his addictions to whatever, he was deemed a hero. And the thing that irritated the heck out of me was the fact that he didn't say, well, I'm not a hero. You know what a hero is? The guys from 9/11, the guys that serve in Iraq and Iran and
Like
World War
Devin
II.
Shea. Devin Shea, our
Yeah.
producer in there.
Exactly. We're guys from Vietnam. You know what I mean? Those are your heroes, pal. Not baseball. Not baseball.
That was a signal that, you're
thought
in
it was saying
movies.
hello.
You're in movies and things
Yeah.
like we're going to go like this pretty soon
Oh,
with you.
God.
But he was telling you that we're down to about the last 5 minutes.
Awesome stuff. Awesome show, guys.
But I wanted to tell you one of your favorite names that you always mention.
Babe Ruth.
He had players that were supposed to watch him. and they weren't very successful. Now, you're a Yankee fan, and you know that.
Yes, they do.
They had the same type of deal back then.
I tell you what.
Okay?
Yeah, but the only
gonna
difference that they had back then is that none of the information was made immediately available to the
We're in a
world.
24/7 media society.
For example, last night the Atlanta Falcons beat the Denver Broncos. Okay, and the players celebrated after the game. Michael Turner, the running back for the Atlanta Falcons, ended up getting arrested for driving under the influence. He only happened to be going 97 miles an hour in a 65-mile-an-hour zone.
Wow.
Just a couple of miles over the speed limit, so that's what got him pulled over. And then, of course, his first words to the cop is, "Well, I'm Michael Turner. I play for the Atlanta Falcons." Boom.
Click,
On
click.
goes the cuffs. But I mean, the stuff like that. He got released from jail at 5 a.m. this morning, and at 5:01 a.m. that was all over the world.
Wow.
I mean, Babe Ruth used to do whatever Babe Ruth used to do, and
How many
people
times
would
did
keep
he
their mouths shut. The reporters were paid to not write about his antics. Mickey Mantle and Whitey Ford. Look at those guys. And Billy Martin when he played. They were wild men.
Even when Billy Martin didn't play, when he was the manager, right? So
But
we're talking Yankees again.
But they protected the athletes, and now it's like
Different world.
athletes are not
It's just a-
role
it's just a
models
different
because
world. Tomorrow's a
everybody
different
wants
world.
to try to make their name and get that $10,000 for the picture or the hot story or whatever.
Okay, since we mentioned,
We're going to be winding this up, so get to your point a little quicker here,
if you guys will go on the air tonight and ask me to come back next Tuesday, I will have something that will knock your socks off, and it's related to the conversation we're having this very moment. Wow! But I have to get an invite to come back.
All right, then. You broke me
It
down.
already has.
That's a first in Bethel Park TV.
Big machine.
This is almost out of control, Big
No,
Mike.
not almost, man. It's there. It's
it
arrived. That's the best.
You know what?
That's the best.
I'm not going to call you next week.
Oh,
You've been officially invited for next Tuesday.
You heard it here, kids.
Only because of that. Okay?
That was. That's
Toss that right up
what's
there, man. I had to hit that one out of the
what's
park.
the Academy Award equivalent for TV? What do they call the TV? What's the
Oscar?
what's the Academy Award equivalent
Oscar.
for TV?
Emmy.
That's it. That's an Emmy performance right there. And
What
ESPN
about
Emmy?
public access
not-
TV? We don't know what that
this
is.
was not rehearsed.
Come to BPTV for award night. Smoking Jim this year. You got to come in there.
Vote for
You're, all of you guys, you're invited. Anybody on the show will be invited.
You know I'll be there.
Well, I know that now. Your business partner's right out there.
All right, here.
And you know what, guys? We had a lot of fun. You can call 412. I don't know. What's the number here?
831-3304
My
if
straight
you want to
man's
vote us
doing
off
it.
the island.
I want to
understand.
thank Big Mike Butera for driving past an accident, driving over some other things, whatever. He made it. Called me numerous times on his cell phone. He started to breathe. I talked him down. He made it.
And I'll be wearing
Smoke-
socks next week.
Smoking Jim Frazier with his insights. What's your pick for this weekend? The one pick we can bet the house on.
I'll come to level 20 and I'll give you my Monday night pick.
Oh,
That is
no
on
pick for the
Monday
weekend. Okay. Chip the Prophet Hayner. What's the Pirates going to do?
The Pirates are going to win at least 5 games between now and next Tuesday.
Wow. Did you say 5 without stuttering?
Yes,
You were
I
the
did.
man.
Yes,
I'm going
I
to stay
did.
on the bandwagon because of the Prophet saying it.
I've ridden with them from spring training, and I'm going to finish out the season with them.
Well, there you have it, folks. I'm Al Levine, the Talking Machine. Thanks for watching Pittsburgh Sportsline. Keep on watching, and if you want to call in, just forget about it. Watch YouTube or something.